wanted to ask you, because it's probably going to be the thing that I'll ask all season, but what was the first class and character that you played?
Okay, the first class I played was a half-orc fighter. And
Ooh.
yeah, so didn't really know what I was doing, honestly. And I feel like the DM forgot to level us up. So we fought like a really hard boss, and that like it stretched for like 3-4 hours.
Yeah.
It was a super long boss fight. I was like, why is this so long? But this is so epic, by the way. And then he wasn't saying like, okay, we could level up. Wait, we could level up in this game? Like, there's more than just what we have right now. So
yeah,
it just brought us to, okay, wow. There's so much more depth in D&D than just, hey, here's a character, here's a race.
Yeah.
And just make it up from there.
Turnkey, fully furnished, family fantasy.
Every DM has this player, the one who hands you a backstory that is essentially a mile long, who has more details and more information about his one character than you do your entire campaign. The one who names the 5 generations of his character's relatives, and the one who is definitely the main person concerned about having those story beat moments come up for him throughout the campaign and for the rest of the party. And for me, that player is Rigee.
Hey, yeah, of course that is. So, are we going to talk about that, or talk about how my great-great-grandma is going to be involved in the story, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
We totally can. This is Rigee. He's not just a player at my table. He's one of what I would say the beating hearts of our game. And today we're going to be talking about what happens when you play D&D like it matters. Like the story is a part of the game, and that the story itself is important. So I'm just going to start off with my first question for you, Rigee. Why D&D? Why do you like it so much?
Honestly, I feel like D&D is just really fun to play. It's a great creative outlet.
Yeah.
For me, like, I never realized until I started playing D&D, but I have just a bunch of stories in my head. Hence why my character creation backstory has so many layers. It just comes to me. And then, I think for character, okay, what's this character? Like, what's this character about? Like, what's his strengths, his weaknesses? Okay, cool. Okay, we got something, but what's something to like really captivate, the audience? Okay, let's give him a sibling. Okay, now we have a sibling dynamic, and all of a sudden, the rabbit hole goes on. So it's just a great creative outlet, and it's just honestly just fun time to spend together. We just come around a table, grab some dice, and then DM starts. All of a sudden, we're just having a good time, just playing dice and imaginative role playing.
So I know that I wasn't your first DM, but I wanted to ask you, because it's probably going to be the thing that I'll ask all season, but what was the first class and character that you played?
Okay, the first class I played was a half-orc fighter. And
Ooh.
yeah, so didn't really know what I was doing, honestly. And I feel like the DM forgot to level us up. So we fought like a really hard boss, and that like it stretched for like 3-4 hours.
Yeah.
It was a super long boss fight. I was like, why is this so long? But this is so epic, by the way. And then he wasn't saying like, okay, we could level up. Wait, we could level up in this game? Like, there's more than just what we have right now. So
yeah,
it just brought us to, okay, wow. There's so much more depth in D&D than just, hey, here's a character, here's a race.
Yeah.
And just make it up from there.
Is that why you always ask me that question?
No.
When are we going to level up?
It's just my inner just min-maxing brain of mine. Like, how do I, like try to get the most benefit? And at level 1, okay, level 2 now, okay, what can I do? Level 3, level 4, et cetera, et cetera.
So would you say you think of D&D kind of like a video game?
Oh, for sure. I just think about it, and like, there's always like the first game is, okay, I'm just playing this for fun. But then how I play it, okay, I play it for fun, but like, I kind of want to get big numbers, right? Do maximum damage, and then I start thinking about, okay, what are the mechanics? Okay, a rogue can do this. Spiders can have second wind. stuff like that. I'm forgetting what's the one that has rage?
That would be the barbarian.
Barbarian. It's not berserker. I was thinking berserker, but that's subclass of a barbarian.
Yeah.
That's what that is. Yeah. So barbarian has rage. Cleric has spells, and cleric doesn't have to be the healer. There's some subclasses that can be a very offensive cleric.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of stuff.
So what would you say is your favorite kind of character to play, and what do you think it says about you as a person?
I say my general character to go to. Honestly, I kind of feel like The Rock. The Rock, is very, he doesn't have a lot of range.
Yeah.
He can only just play this one character. And then I feel very similar too. I try to branch out, but my default goes to this super strong but dumb, lovable character.
Yeah.
He's just innocently dumb. And honestly, he just does his best. And it doesn't really make sense. But I mean, he's thinking, but it's not thinking in the right direction.
Yeah. So I know you love story and backstory just from playing from you a lot.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, what is more fun for you? Is it writing the actual story for the characters, or is it seeing that story unfold during the campaign?
I feel like I enjoy both. There's this one character that I made, a paladin, and then it was a while till we get until we got one shot going on campaign started. So I'm gonna just let this unfold and see what my brain comes up with, and then. So I make this paladin character, and then I just make this whole backstory, how he was raised in an abandoned church, and that's how we got the oath of my sister was taken away and it was my fault, so I'm gonna do everything I can to avenge her. And then the story goes, and he comes and finds his sister again somehow. But that's just me just story writing for my own entertainment. There's also the beauty of just collaborative storytelling, where that some things doesn't happen if you have that unexpected factor of randomness, whether the DM has it or another player comes up with it.
Do you think that's what brings you back to the table every week?
Yeah, for sure. It's fun just to get everyone's ideas and their character personalities ingrained in the story too. And it's honestly, it feels like a movie in a sense. You're doing a movie, but you're actually in the movie and you're just watching all this stuff happen. It's whoa, what's going on? We're all of a sudden in this tavern and this giant guy picks me up. It's okay, what do I do here? Or all of a sudden, friend shoots an arrow, a big explosion happens. Oh, there's a big explosion. What do we do? It's very interactive and very immersive in that sense.
What would you say that you care about the most when it comes to the characters that you like to play?
What do you mean by that? As in?
When you're thinking of creating a character, creating a backstory, what's the number one thing that's at the front of your mind when you're creating that character?
That's good. Honestly, it just really just depends. I feel like if you just have an idea, and just roll with that idea and try to figure out what class fits it, or what would benefit, or what's just funny, hey, let's have a halfling barbarian, just a super small guy just being super angry and punching people, or
Ernie Hulk,
or just have a grappler, be a monk, and you can grapple someone and then run to the edge of the cliff and toss them off. Or if you want to do more of a, let's say, more of a paladin build, but you want it super strict and stern, and then very, by the book, super straight laced, we could do that. Or if you just have an idea, so you know what, I want to play a tired character, and then it really is. It starts with an idea and just branching out from there. So okay, I want to play this character, but what class fits this role that I want to play as?
Do you feel like the tone that we set at our table? Do you feel like tone is something that matters when it comes to telling a story at the table?
Yeah, I'd say so for sure. I feel like that is the backbone of it all. If you have a certain tone in mind, it's going to be represented somehow, some way, even though it's not implicit or directly there on paper. Say you want to make a sad character, a super gloomy character, but the tone of the game is just super fun and upbeat. All of a sudden, this super sad character is still funny, and there's certain story beats that he's just being his character, and yet it's super memorable because he's just being just a sad guy in a funny scenario.
Yeah, something that I think about a lot, especially with the idea of talking about the art of PG play. And so it's one of those things where, though tabletop gaming is a creative medium and it's something that I know we both love, the idea of essentially having stories being told, but in a way where we maybe don't go darker. We don't go into some of the areas where Things might be explicit, but we focus on kind of the core concepts of the game, which is the improvisation, the playing together, the having fun at the table, the imagination. You know, one of the things you love is like bringing characters to life, like the smolder. And so taking ideas and building on them, but also having a place where the story that we want to tell has a very grounded, rooted tone that we stick to, and how we navigate some of the more intricacies of the table when it comes to dealing with like explicit content or dealing with things. Do you feel like because maybe we don't explore some of the darker parts of Dungeons and Dragons that you get less of an experience playing at the table?
I mean, personally, I don't think so. I mean, the heart of the game is just we're all coming around a table, rolling some dice and having fun. And I feel like you can exactly have that without the dark and, you know, censored stuff.
Yeah,
for sure.
You know, you've been playing with me, I think a little over 6 months.
Yeah, a little bit. Like that.
Have you ever had moments where you felt like, hey, this particular story beat could have been better if it was more explicit? Or do you feel like having things more grounded so that we can tell stories together has been more powerful?
Like, I'm not too picky by this.
Yeah.
You could be asking, you know, the wrong person, but I mean, I'm not like, let's go into the details of how, you know, this guy murdered this guy.
Yeah.
Or like, I'm not, okay, like he just cut his head off. Cool. That's all the visual I need to see.
Yeah.
Or, you know, or he threw him into the fire or whatever.
Yeah.
Or
you don't need to describe every single detail.
Yeah.
You don't need to torture the guy to have fun.
Yeah. It's just, okay. I mean, I get the picture already. Or stuff like that.
Do you feel that tabletop games can be a place where people can, you know, explore ideas that they might not be able to in their everyday lives?
What do you mean by that? As in just like role-playing stuff?
Yeah, just role-playing stuff, or even, you know, telling stories that, you know, they may not be able to tell simply because, you know, they're not a writer. They're not they're not necessarily someone who, you know, devotes their life to storytelling, but they're able to essentially act that out, improv that out.
Oh, yeah,
live
for
in the
sure.
moment.
I mean, like growing up, I was a sports guy growing up, you know, like, like I played sports. You know, I was, you know, wrestling, getting, you know, in the gym, getting ready for practice. So I never had like this outlet of, you know, theater or being in an improv class or whatever, or drama club. It's just because my schedule never fit it. And then I never realized I enjoyed this stuff until I actually started doing it. You know, it all started like, oh yeah, I mean, yeah, sure, that'll be fun. You know, just grab a group of people and in a sense, just make something up. It's like, you know, like being kids again. Yeah. And then, you know, say, hey, we have 2 sticks and we're finding a dragon at this point. So it's a similar concept. It's like, hey, like I have a paper, you know, I have my character sheet, I have my set of dice. Let's see where we go with this.
Yeah. No, honestly, that's my favorite part of the game, is that it doesn't matter, you know, what your general interests are. It doesn't matter what your background's like. We could have different like tastes in music, we do different things in our free time. You know, you talk about growing up with sports more, and, you know, some people don't have that super fun-filled fantasy background, but I think Dungeons and Dragons is one of those things where it's so easily adaptable. It's something that anyone can pick up dice and just talk about it and have fun and engage together at the table and tell a story. I was going to ask you this, but do you feel like D&D has changed you? Do you feel like it's even a little bit as a person? Do you feel like it's made you better in some way? Yeah,
I mean, I'd say so. I'd say it just makes me appreciate characters, especially in a sense of like character development. It's like, okay, like where do these stories come from? Well, just really like application. So seeing this in real life and like, oh wait, okay, like this is like actual people, and just seeing it in real life scenarios, seeing it makes me appreciate movies a lot more too. Yeah. So it's like, oh, okay. So having more of that creative in background of it. And I don't know, I'd say it just makes me more aware and makes me more aware of my limitations as a player. Yeah. So, okay, I mean, I tend to do the dumb, strong character. Yeah. And then it's okay, but what if I can branch out? Yeah. You know, what if I can do X, Y, Z and see how I do from there? You know, it also teaches me about myself as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's great. I think that sometimes it's fun to do both. Like sometimes it's fun to be, have a character who's morally complex and is going through multiple different issues and tell stories about that. But sometimes it's fun to be just like a dumb guy who wants to smash everything and who literally just wants to, fight every single goblin that shows up on the road from, here all the way to Waterdeep.
Right.
What would you say has been one of your, I mean, maybe I'm tooting my own horn because I'm asking you this, but what would you say has been one of your favorite scenes to actually play out?
Favorite scenes?
Like as a player?
Yeah, as a player, I'll be honest, it's not one of your scenes.
That's totally
But it was just like my very first boss battle, the one that took 3 hours, 4 hours to do, because it was so cinematic. It was insane. We definitely broke all the rules. There was 3 players, me and 2 others, and a DM.
Yeah,
we're facing like this, I don't know, like this elven boss. And then so we're all floating in the air. We're able to walk on air for somehow, and all of a sudden, like my character, faints, and then another player picks me up, and it comes my turn. Okay, wait, I have an idea, and then so I tie a rope around myself and him, and then I throw him, and then with the rope he pulls me, and then so it's like the slingshot action, and then through that again I throw him again because we're like so far away from this boss, and then so we did this little slingshot, and like I threw him, he threw me, I threw him again, and he did like this final blow, and I came up, and then so it was insane just in real time, and we also had to make strength checks, and so to actually hit it in real time, it's like, oh my gosh, like this is epic. But yeah, it's stuff like that. I'm gonna say another time is when I played the Smolder. I don't know, it was just it was just fun.
For those that are watching, they don't know who the Smolder is, so tell us a little bit about him.
So the Smolder is a very charismatic character. He was born from the depths of a volcano, and he is known and loved by millions of fans. However, in this campaign, he was taken into like this little, village in the woods, so no one knows him. And so first scene, I introduce myself, so, the Smolder enters in, and no one recognizes him, and he just goes on the table, starts flexing, and no one, pays attention to him. I don't know, just able to play that out. It was really fun.
No, honestly, it's one of my favorite characters that you've played. And honestly, I think thinking about where we started kind of like 6, 7, 8 months ago.
Sure.
And then just seeing, both you and our other friend, Andrew, who is playing with us, just grow in your own ability to improvise and come up with unique character ideas was super fun. You love to write character backstories, and I love that about you. Honestly, you give me more to work with as a DM than probably anybody else that I've played with. And it's become super helpful because I can try to weave that into the story. Do you ever feel that you write scenes just for yourself? Like little bonus lore that nobody else knows about, that it's just for your character that doesn't necessarily get seen at the table?
Yeah, honestly, yeah. I mean, it's the backstory, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know all your backstory in a sense. Like, there's a billion stories that you just haven't shared. And same thing with me. So, I mean, in my backstory, I'm not making a fuss. It's like, oh, hey, why don't you talk about how, my sister was actually this blind assassin, and how come she hasn't appeared yet?
Yeah.
I'm not too concerned about that. It's just mostly personal enjoyment for me is, and if it comes up, then it comes up. It's like, whoa, wow, hey, you actually read through my entire novel of this character's backstory. But I'm not too disappointed if you don't bring back my father in a sense in the story. It's just okay, yeah, this is something that you could use, but it's just something how I see it is my perspective of my character growing up, and that is an aspect that which you can as a DM can bring or not.
No, definitely. I think the goal is to create a space for you to have those stories and to be able to tell those stories, but also have an environment where you're bringing that character who may not have that real life experience playing out on the table, but is a part of why you make the decisions the way you are.
Yeah.
I think the other fun thing about backstory writing is one of those things where you can essentially have your story unfold as you're playing the character, and you're essentially allowing other players to learn your backstory by just seeing how you make decisions, how you choose, do you knock on the door? Do you lock pick the door, or do you bust it down with an axe and, start a fight with the first guy inside the tavern?
Yeah. And that is the trick, like being open-handed with your story.
Yeah.
Like if you're like super like, okay, this has to happen, like X, Y, Z has to happen, then you're kind of ruining the game, because the entire point of the game is improv, in the moments type stuff. So if you're like super concerned about your backstory, like, okay, this has to happen or else I'm not going to play the game anymore, then okay. I feel like you either have to make a new character, create a backstory and be okay with it not going the way that you wanted. Yeah. So like for example, like this paladin character that I made up, and then I have this whole story, planned out for him. But I mean, I have to go through that layer of thinking, okay, do I want to bring this into a one-shot or campaign? Because this is kind of going to mess up all my previous lore I have for him. Or do I just choose a new character and pick a new paladin with a different, background?
Would you say that you're a player who wants to be able to create characters for specific like stories and campaigns? Or do you feel like you enjoy more like having characters with like their own unique backstories coming into a new campaign idea, rather than, kind of like I said before, like the characters made for that specific story?
Yeah, I mean, either or. I mean, like, hey, we are in a, very lowly village, and let's create, like, who's this barkeeper? Let's give him a background. Let's say, he was loved by the people, but the thing is, he's always out of money somehow, and you could use that as a hook. Or, like a character coming out of that, out of the story. Like, for example, hey, the setting of the store, we're on a pirate ship.
Yeah.
Okay. But this character I want to make him a lawyer. I don't know. So how does that fit? And well, I don't know. We just figure it out.
Yeah, you can have a lawyer on a pirate ship.
Yeah, he's a lawyer and he's studying overseas, and all the boats are taken. So the only hope that's free is this, this very sketchy pirate ship.
Yeah. And maybe that's the way that he gets to navigate.
Yeah.
And get to his next case.
Yeah.
Or, because they're pirates, their immediate response is to kill the lawyer.
Yeah,
you just never know.
It could happen, or he could, file a lawsuit against them and somehow talk his way out of it. Who knows?
Do you think that balancing as a player, like having a DM who's willing to balance big emotion but also keep the game fun, keep it lighthearted, do you think it's something that's important? And how do you like to see that handled at the table?
Yeah, I mean, being a DM is hard. Like we want those impactful moments, those epic moments, those memorable moments. But it's also trying to balance that. Okay, like those epic moments are epic because there's fun moments in between, and also trying to read a table of like, because there could be certain scenes where two people are on this side and the other two has to wait for them. Yeah. So we got to make it both engaging for the two players who are in the scene, but how do we also, keep the attention of those other two players? Because I've seen certain scenarios where, how like some players went, an entire session, 3-4 hours, and they only had one scene. Like they only played for 15 minutes, and then the rest of the session, the other team had it. So it is really difficult balancing that, but finding that sweet spot, finding that tension of fun and epic and memorable and engaging is the key for being a, fun DM.
Yeah. Would you say that for you, along that vein, do you think that having those big combat moments is more important, or do you think having those moments where you're role playing as your character is kind of the thing that gives you life more when you play?
Mm-hmm. I say for me personally, I like combat because there are certain turns that you have to do. Because me as a just Rigee in general. Yeah. Like I like to tend to be reserved and listen and really think about what I'm going to say. So for example, my improv, I won't be jumping the gun right away in a conversation. I'm thinking about it. I have to be really out of character for me and to be like super like jumpy and snappy and just jumping right in and interrupting them. So for combat, for me, it's super easy because, okay, I have to engage and I have to, roll in this and that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't remove the purpose of having meaningful role playing moments. Because there's definitely been a lot of those, and yeah, it's just how you're able to play in the moment, and really shows like a test of your acting skills, your improv skills, and how you're able just to react.
Do you have like a favorite moment that you've gotten to role play?
Got to the role play. Honestly, the Smolder comes to mind. He's my most recent character that I played. And I don't know. I mean, I grew up watching wrestling, and it's just that persona of this super big, getting charismatic, guy always talking to third person, and likes to smash things. Like that's just, I don't know. I just growing up, I was seeing that.
No, it's part of what makes the game fun.
And because, in a sense, that's more natural to me. I can able to improv stuff and be more out of my Rigee character and more into this Mortar character, and really jump into his shoes and just play scenes out how me, Rigee, wouldn't have normally done it.
No, I think that's super cool. I honestly think that just getting to see you do that, seeing you grow when it comes to actually playing the game and improvising a character who's a little bit outside of you, but is like something that you grew up watching. Do you think creating characters that are kind of like little pieces of who we are, or characters that we grew up watching, reading about, liking, do you think that's something that really makes D&D unique? And do you think it's like what makes D&D more fun for like you and Andrew at the table?
Yeah, for sure. I just say because everyone has their own stories and like how they view themselves. Yeah. And instead of me interpreting, okay, this is a snobby rich character. Yeah. But the player actually plays that character. So, oh, this is how he sounds. Oh, this is how he reacts in certain situations. Okay. And it just adds a whole new spice in the mix, in a sense. I mean, I wouldn't say this is like a 1-for-1 read, but like, okay, this is like, a character that they thought about, and like totally have to like role play into it. So in some sense, they have to act as that character. So, and see how they react to that. So this snobby character, hey, he's playing as a snobby character, or this tired character. Okay, this person somehow sees themselves as a tired person. That's as their character instead of as a whole personality. Okay, what is PG Play, Daniel?
I think the goal of PG Play is to be tone-focused storytelling, but it balances emotional depth and moral complexity, leaning on the actual storytelling beats and not leaning on explicit or graphic content to make it hit hard. And so with my new ebook coming out, The Art of PG Play, and it's kind of goes into how to create meaningful, morally rich, but still seriously fun tabletop adventures without going completely explicit. I think the big thing is it's not just for kids, but PG Play is often, in my opinion, harder to pull off because it requires actual skill, actual improv, actual storytelling, instead of just throwing gore or just throwing explicit content at the problem. It's not essentially all rainbows or sunshine.
Right.
Your characters can still face moral dilemmas and experience real loss, heartache. They can screw up royally. I can't tell you how many times you and Andrew have done ridiculous or silly things at the table, or you completely miss the puzzle altogether, or your character can't talk their way out of a situation, and combat is what happened.
Right.
But essentially, you have to deal with those consequences, and the first response in dealing with those consequences is not being over the top. It's not being explicit. The goal is not to be fun, please, but by banning content that might be dark or conflicting or morally gray, but you're choosing to explore them without essentially making anyone uncomfortable at the table, and creating an environment where you and I could play with our grandparents, but we could also play with our little cousin, or we could play with a little brother or a little sister. And so it takes those emotional highs and makes them feel earned, and it gives permission to explore, in my mind, complex themes without derailing the game into just awkwardness.
I'm hearing this. It's very similar to like movies.
Yeah.
Like is there good PG-13 movies? For sure.
Of course there are.
Yeah. I mean, like, and they have all the story beats.
We
like,
just went and saw one together.
yeah. Like, you know, the main character goes through like this, you know, the hero's journey, and, you know, gore, unnecessary scenes aren't there, but yet it was still a very meaningful and impactful story.
Yeah.
So
we went and saw How to Train Your Dragon literally
for example,
a week and a half ago. It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Sure.
They just came out with the live action remake.
hey,
And so when I look at the story, you know, do you feel like if Toothless wasn't essentially biting people's necks off and watching blood spill out, do you feel like it's less impactful? Is he less this majestic dragon, or does the actual storytelling of how he and Hiccup become friends and then go on this journey together to not only save the dragons, but to save Burke?
right.
Do you feel like that makes the story more meaningful, or do you feel like, you know, having it look more like Game of Thrones, where the dragons are clearly killing everyone and there's graphic sexual scenes all the time? Do you feel like you're more prone to have the stories similar to How to Train Your Dragon stick with you?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think about like the opening scene of the whole movie.
Yeah.
Like, dragons attack. Okay, like, sure, it wasn't any incredibly gory stuff.
No.
Like, yeah, fire breathing. You know, houses are burning down, and like, it showed the purpose that dragons are threats, and it showed the significance of dragons and how dangerous they are. And they talk about how Toothless, this Night Fury, was this unkillable dragon.
Yeah.
And okay, this is unkillable dragon, and there's like this scene how, you know, breaks the sound barrier, and then how, you know, his fireball is like insane, like this bluish flames. Okay, like we don't need these details of gore to demonstrate, okay, Toothless or this Night Fury is a threat, to all, you know, all of humanity. And that, I feel like that sets the stage of how Hiccup is able to relate to this, to this Night Fury. Okay, this very, you know, dangerous dragon that no one has information on this, but yet how am I able to still, you know, how the story writers able to create this connection of this Hiccup and Toothless. So
yeah, I mean, I think it doesn't make having a story that doesn't go graphic doesn't make it where, you know, Toothless is any less fierce or any less powerful as a character. You know, I think we all desire to tell stories. I think we all desire to see ourselves in those stories. And so I think caring about the stories that we tell, caring about the tone is something that's important, it's valuable. And I think that we can do it in a way to where, you know, even at our table, if we have cartoony violence or if we have, you know, crazy antics, it's fun.
Yeah.
But the goal is not to do something where essentially we're making others at the table uncomfortable, but we're building stories and worlds that people want to live in. And that's kind of what I think of when I think of How to Train Your Dragon. That's what I think of when I think about multiple other like fantasy genres. And, you know, they're not always children's movies. Like I think of, there are plenty of adult movies. Like I think of, you know, the Princess Bride. I think of Star Wars, even in itself, the original trilogy. Like those movies were creating a story and a narrative that was powerful and impactful and was meaningful to a young kid, but there wasn't over the top like explicit violence. I mean, especially in the older trilogy, there's the violence in those movies is
very mild,
very, very mild. The lightsaber combat was limited to the technology that they had, but it's one of those things where like even in George Lucas's newer films and even in the newer Star Wars movies, and we even see this across Marvel movies, you can have a family-friendly tone and story, but still have laughs, still have violence, still have real powerful storytelling, still have meaningful characters who people fall in love with and who people really enjoy watching play out. And I think that's the same thing that we can do at the table with D&D.
Yeah. So what I'm seeing is that, you know, PG Play, AirDnD is really focused on storytelling.
Yes.
And building characters and emotional moments. It's not about the very in-depth details of gore or of this certain character. It shows where your focus is and it shows where your priority is. So it just shows that we can play D&D as more story-based, story-driven versus, okay, this versus scene driven versus this king with 10 golden jewels and this royal crown, blah blah blah. Sure, those scenes are good, but it just shows the heart of what AirDnD is all about.
What do you feel like a meaningful choice looks like to you in D&D? Not just mechanically, but like storytelling wise. Like what are the choices that you feel like as a player matter and are the type of stories that you want to tell?
Yeah, I mean, it really does depend on the situation. Like, for example, like if your character has this, say like you have a character like a fighter or something.
Yeah.
And he wears armor and, he grew up wearing this armor. And then all of a sudden, every time he takes it off, he feels, insecure or he feels anxiety about it. So like role playing moments where he has to go to the marketplace without his armor or because like, say like it got chipped or it got damaged in the previous fight. And then now he had to face that, that mental choice. Okay, hey, can I get these 2 loaves of fish or 2 loaves and some fish?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And so even though it's super small, but it's meaningful to that character. And I also say some other meaningful moments is what's ever hardest for the DM, whatever makes you the most mad. I mean, that's also very meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, whatever makes you think a lot more. For example, like say like you're just listing some random characters and all of a sudden you say a funny character and then we as a group we really like that character.
I know.
And then I think that's a very meaningful choice to really bring back a character that you have no idea that's going to be involved in the story.
No, it totally is. I mean, I think you guys do that a lot where you latch on to characters that I have no intention of actually building a backstory out for.
Yeah, that's the beauty of D&D.
But for some reason you guys become obsessed with them and then I have to make these weird voices essentially for the rest of the campaign.
Yep.
Because those are the characters that you seem to like. We're the guy that I spent 30 minutes to an hour prepping. For some reason you guys don't like.
Yeah, we missed it. We missed it.
Have you had a moment where your character had to choose between what was easy and what was right at the table?
Man, okay. That is tricky. I do know of a character where he had to choose either, to do this for the group, like in order for his people, but even though he'll be hindered because of it, and like everything will be like harder for him, like roles will be difficult for him, or like certain combat and certain interactions, like role playing moments will be difficult for him. But the thing is, the reason he didn't do that because he didn't want to harm the whole group. So stuff like that. I mean, I can't think of one off the top of my head that something that I had to be wrestled with that choice.
Unpack that a little more. What was he specifically dealing with?
He was a vampire. Well, he was bitten by a vampire. So now he's a vampire. Apparently that's how a vampire works.
Yeah.
And now he had to wrestle between, okay, in order for him now, so as vampires, they have like this insatiable greed or lust to feed off blood. So he had to wrestle, okay, do I eat a party member or do I have to wait out and like wait a whole day without, consuming any, living blood?
Yeah.
And because of that, he has, some side effects or some defects, something like that. So yeah, it really is stuff, heartbeat story, stuff like that.
No, I think that's super powerful. I think where you had to have those moral choices between good and evil, and kind of decide, are you going to be a player who chooses the easy option, which is to slaughter all of your friends in the party, though that might be funny. And not that that's even morally wrong, but you're choosing between what's like the easy choice versus the harder choice, which is role playing that story out and seeing how can you do it in a way that, goes on that journey of having that internal turmoil. I would say when it comes to storytelling, I think that, you and I both have seen this where we gather around a table with some dice, with some friends, and we don't know what's going to unfold. And the unpredictedness of Dungeons and Dragons is something that I think we both love. I think improvising is something that we both have been drawn to when it comes to playing D&D, where literally anything our own imagination can cook up can essentially be played out at the table. and we can create experiences that, you know, have stuck with us. Like, I think some of my favorite moments of our friendship and even like hang out with you and Andrew has been at that table, you know, role playing some of these moments or going through like, you know, montages of your characters' backstories and past and seeing them face like, you know, things that really define who they were. But those moments that make you think about them, you know, months later, and the kind of stories that you share whenever you leave the session because they were so impactful, and those kind of memories that, you know, I hope are impactful enough that when we're around the table, it's something that we take past the table. It's something that we remember, even if, you know, you join another group and Andrew joins another group. But at the end of the day, I think it's not the rule books. It's not the mechanics, you know, or even the story. I think what makes these games absolutely powerful and impactful is about being part of something together. And so it's that feeling, I think, when our characters get understood, when those backstories play out. And unlike in books or movies, I think the biggest thing about tabletop role-playing games is that the stories are happening to us and we get to go on them together. And so you're not just watching the hero's journey, but you're actually in it. You're not reading about it. You're not observing it. You're going on that adventure with a group of friends, sometimes doing some of the weirdest things, you know, having characters who exclusively talk to themselves.
Right.
Or even having those improvised scenes where you and Andrew completely leave me out and essentially create this crazy and manic side story that we never intended to play out, like fighting people randomly in the town square just because there was like a fighting gambling ring going on.
Yep.
But I would say, do you feel that the stories themselves have made an impact in your life? And do you feel like it's something that you will remember when you're not playing D&D or when, you know, you're not playing D&D at a table with me?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like, these stories are like the point of why we play D&D is we just make up random stuff. You know, we're playing imagination in a sense.
Yeah.
Like, we're just imagining this scene and we're just, in a sense, just spending time together and creating the story together. You know, I can think of a handful of stories of how me and Andrew, or in another one shot or a campaign, how like just small interaction as our characters, and then it just stuck.
Do you feel that as a player, you're able to express those things, like the things that mean the most to you? And do you feel like the table that you play at reflects the values that you have as both a person and as a character?
I'd say, well, say I have an idea and I just shoot it out. Yeah. And then Daniel says, well, you could try.
Yeah.
And then
we can always try.
And then I try it.
And always roll for it.
And then the majority doesn't work all the time. But the fact that we were able to go there and something could have happened, and maybe something did happen, and we can use that bit to like as leverage, you know, to get, you know, to the boss or some information from this guy or whatever. Just because as for me, like as Rigee in general, like I will have certain like thoughts in my head. It's okay, should I do this? Should I not? I don't know. But now as growing as a character, it's like, you know what? Let's shoot for it. Like go for it and see what happens. Yeah. And if it doesn't go well, then it doesn't go well. You know, like I remember this one scene. So we were meeting the boss, and then we're doing like this negotiation scene, and then previously we realized there was bombs, you know, on the lower level of this house. Yeah. So we were upstairs, and then my character was like, okay, you know, we're in this top secret meeting, you know, blah blah blah. Hey, exchange, you know this you know secret item for your beloved character, and then we do it, and then but like before we do it, I was like, hey, can I use the restroom real quick? And then I go to the door, but it was somehow magically closed. So I'm like, oh, well, that kind of ruins my plan, because I was planning to, you know, use the bombs downstairs to start that up. So that didn't work. So, but that creates this moment of, okay, what do I do now? So in character, and it's okay, well, because the door's locked, I actually just moved to the corner and, you know, did my business there because... because, I was, trying to stay in character, trying to have fun. But like that moment wouldn't happen if you did give me the freedom to role play and just try stuff out.
What would you say makes a table feel safe enough to play without reservations, but also with kind of that tone in mind that we're wanting to essentially still have an environment where we can have fun, an environment where we can explore these morally complex issues and tell meaningful stories? What do you feel like at the table helps allow us to do that?
Yeah, I feel like the biggest part would be doing a session 0, like laying down boundaries and saying, okay, this is what we're good with, this is what we're not good with. And understanding the limitations or like what you expect from a group honestly does a lot for players. Okay, like now, like I won't even think about doing that stuff because that's already off the table. So like, okay, now I can explore this area and not have my mind space be clogged up with other details that I used, didn't find fitting in this environment. And I say, I don't know, the more comfortable you are as a character and the more you're able to role play and create these fun moments, like loosens everyone up. And once everyone, I feel like a good read for the table is actually what happens before the game actually starts. Like everyone comes in and see how everyone's doing. Like, okay, is everyone tired from work? Are they excited? Are they just, okay, here we go for another 3-hour session we're still at a tavern, we haven't fought anyone yet. So just getting a read off that and trying to understand, how, like where they're at. And also just, as a DM, like trying to understand the players, like, okay, what do they want to do? And how can I somehow change the story that I prepped to somehow fit that? I feel like that's super helpful too, just to make people more comfortable and more like, okay, yeah. And as people get more comfortable, like they're able to loosen up and more special spontaneous moments can happen.
If someone that you're playing with, or I would say players, and just in general, what do you feel like allows people to tell stories that matter to them? What would you say are the ingredients for that at the table?
I say we gotta involve them somehow, because if they're like a character like me or a person like me who is very reserved in real life, and if they're also reserved, they're also trying to think and trying to think about, and if their character is kind of like that, then it's okay. But say like as a DM, you'll say, okay, blah blah blah, you're in a tavern and this happens, and then now as a character who can kind of read that, okay, this person has not engaged in the past like 40 minutes, so we go ahead, I just say the same thing that you just said. So your last name I say is, okay, so we're in a tavern, is anyone thirsty? And then I ask the character, hey, do you need a drink or anything? So to get them more involved in the story, so they're not just in the background, like, okay, blah blah blah, I'm just here and I'll wait until the DM calls me for anything, because this is a very interactive game. This is like, you can do anything you want. So just being mindful of that, and as a player, just start including more people. And if they haven't seen any, or if they haven't said their thoughts or done anything for a while, just include them. Just ask them their opinion about the certain stuff. And if it's just a sentence, then it's just a sentence. But including them, incorporating them in the whole story helps to get those meaningful moments, I'd say.
No, I think that totally makes sense. Have you ever been, do you feel like in a game where, we've been talking about PG play, but like where you feel like the tone was off, or you feel like, someone crossed the line, and how do you feel like that played out? Do you feel like it shut you down in any way?
I feel like it would be good for a debrief. After the session, hey guys, what'd you think? And said, okay, that was great, awesome, cool, blah, blah, blah. And said, hey, no, actually this moment actually kind of threw me off because I didn't like it, just the way you portrayed this, and like, I don't know, like kind of defeated the purpose, or kind of, I don't know, I wasn't a fan of this. He said, okay. And just communication, honestly, like if something that you didn't like, then express it that you didn't like it.
Totally.
And if you liked it, then express that you liked it. And being silent about it doesn't help. So okay, you like some person said this, create this very gory scene, and that made you uncomfortable. But you don't talk about it because you don't want to be that guy to talk about stuff like that or be confrontational. Then the next session, all of a sudden, there's more scenes like that. And then you all of a sudden go into this downward spiral of, oh man, I thought this was fun, but I don't know what happened. But just, going out and during those debrief sessions of just, I didn't like this scene just because, I don't know, I didn't like it. And because of my current beliefs or whatever, I just wasn't a fan of that. So just be more mindful when that does happen. So when you do, kill like a minion or whatever, just a fodder character, and then you can be more mindful instead of going to this super just graphic scene. So I do this, and then that's it. So being mindful and intentional with the people around you.
No, I think that's super important. I think the goal of PG Play is to create the environment where we can play together, and we can have those really hard-hitting scenes, but we don't have to have people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I think prioritizing your players, I think having the opportunity for debriefs, I even think having, sometimes it's really hard to express discomfort, especially at a table, and especially when, what bothers Rigee or what bothers me may not bother everybody else. And so it's one of those things where the goal of PJ Play is not to have a toned down, mundane version of Dungeons and Dragons where there's no creativity, where you can't do anything, but it's actually to create a game and a place where we can play where, your values are reflected at the table and my values are reflected at the table.
Right.
And we play a game based on, the things that we care about. And, sometimes that means like, hey, I don't want to have gruesome murder scenes. And sometimes that means like, hey, I'm really a nerdy guy who loves the movie Treasure Planet, and I want to play stories where we are flying on sky ships with sky pirates, because that's the type of adventures that make my mind and my heart soar whenever I want to play this game. And so realizing that it's not even about just putting guardrails on the way that we play, but it's about making sure that your voice gets heard. And I think for me as a DM and as a player, like, I want to hear the voices of the other people at the table and be able to integrate that into the way that I play, but also into the way that we tell the stories. Yeah. And so I think that's super important. I think that matters. And I think it's valuable that you bring it up. Rigee, I want to thank you.
Yeah.
Not for just being on the podcast, but for being one of the players at my table who cares so deeply about, the way that we play. You don't just bring backstory, but you bring a lot of buy-in. And I think it's something that helps you turn a map in minis and make it into a real story that plays out. You're one of the most visual players that I play with. And I'll honestly say that for those listening, whether you've been playing for years or you've never rolled a single die, I hope that you guys heard something today that reminds you that storytelling isn't a side effect of the game, but it is the game. It's what D&D is about. And when we take it seriously, when we bring our creativity and meaningfulness and honesty, even our, sometimes emotional struggles, or even the things that, we're encountering on a day-to-day basis. You brought up like coming in from work. We tell stories at a table and we have fun. I think that those will be the memories that last, the memories that mean something.